Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, fight fans all over the world, my name is Robert Huddleston. This is the golden age of combat sports, and today we're going to discuss fighting fat. Not fighting fat, fighting while fat. Being an overweight athlete in combat sports. And you can see this in other sports, not all NFL players are ripped. A surprising amount of baseball players are really thick dudes. I don't see many thin, female softball players at all. Builds, certain sports require different builds. But there's a slew of legendary fighters out there, both in boxing and MMA. It goes over into kickboxing too, all these guys, that fought 30, 40, 50 pounds out of their weight class. And I wonder, would they have been the same? Would they have cut down to the next weight class? Namely, Fedor Emelianenko, who's 6 foot tall, fought most of his career in the 230s. Got up to high 240s, 248, 247 once, I believe. Most of his career was in the 230s. I think he dipped into the 220s once. Daniel Cormier, 5'11", 5'10", 5'11". Got as low as 205, fought as high as 260, and ran around most of his career in the 240s in MMA. Andy Ruiz in boxing, who's 6 foot tall and boxes up at 260 pounds. Has recently fought as high as 281, I believe. Mark Hunt, who is a flat 6 foot, and I believe has always fought in the high 250s or 260s. And Roy Nelson, who is also right at 6 foot, and fought down into the 240s and fought as high as into the 260s. If I'm missing any fat fighter, I'm not saying fat in pejorative. These guys fought 30, 40 pounds. They're fat. They fought overweight. No one's going to look at them and be like, you're fighting within your proper weight class. That was their mystique. That you obviously showed up with a belly. Are you so good that it doesn't matter that you have a belly? Or are we all wrong and are you good because of that belly? Are you good because you get a wild surplus of calories and training all day, fighting all day, wrestling and running and boxing, lifting weights, that surplus of calories gives you the ability to fight at your potential that, say, Fedor, all these guys are right around 6 foot. The vast majority of them, I'll be honest, at 6 foot, all of them could have fought at 205. And in a different life, they could have fought at 185. I stood next to Fedor. He's a pretty thick dude. I'm 6 foot and 200 pounds. I've stood next to Fedor. He's about 1.5 times thicker than me. He could have made 200 pounds. He would have been hurting himself to get to 185. Never stood next to DC. Everybody says he really had to lose some thickness to get to 205. Probably he could never make 185. Mark Hunt, I think, is a different dimension. Again, never stood next to him, but he looks like his hips are wider than my shoulders. 205, probably in a different life. Roy Nelson, it's funny, they're the exact same body type. Roy, I think, could have fought at 205. Would they have been able to eat the same shot? Andy Ruiz? Yeah, Andy Ruiz ain't got the same frame. He should be fighting at cruiserweight. Could they take the same shot? That excess of calories giving you the extra neck muscle, the extra meat in your ass and your hips to take a shot. I mean, if you were cutting to 205 or to 200, taking the water out of your body, physically taking weight off your body that can absorb a shot from a guy like Anthony Joshua. One of those fights went well for Andy, one didn't. Could a 200-pound Andy have done that to Anthony Joshua? If you don't know who Anthony Joshua is, he's 6'7", just built like a comic book character. And he can really box. And Ruiz is a chubby. I think he's a Mexican American. If he's actually Mexican, like nationality, forgive me. He's Aztec. Really can fight. Gifted hands. I know what it's like to move around 200 pounds. I can't imagine carrying another 60 pounds on this frame and then doing it well. So I wonder, Andy Ruiz, what's his hips and ass and back made like that he can move weight that's can't be held at a certain point. 10 pounds of fat gives you an extra layer to eat a shot. Well, is it 20 or 30? At what point are you carrying excess weight? He's already wildly fast for being that short and fat. Could 200-pound Andy have beaten Anthony Joshua, who's like, again, the 265? Would Mark Hunt and Roy Nelson, who could famously just eat shots, would they be able to do that at 205? Roy Nelson once said there's no one at 205 that could beat him. Scale? I mean, if you really believe that, I think you would have gone down to 205. I don't know. I mean, would Mike Tyson have hit as hard if he would have had to make cruiserweight? Does that extra 10, 20, 15, 50 pounds? Somewhere there's a trade. The ability to eat a shot, the ability to have, weight in your hips for conditioning. Shockingly, a lot of these guys are well conditioned. Actually, that'll be a fairly good one. Mike Tyson, 5'11", and he was 220 pounds and all muscle. Imagine if Fedor would have been 5'11" and 220 pounds and all just jacked muscle. I mean, Fedor fought virtually his whole career buttless. Go back and look. Guy has the hood of a truck for a back and kind of some love handles and this little narrow butt. It's like, how'd you generate all that power with no butt muscle? So, if he were not carrying an extra, I don't know. I slapped the guy's back. It was rock solid. Didn't give his belly a jiggle. He's carrying something extra. So if that 10, 15, 20 pounds would have been put into leg and ass muscle, if Fedor would have been built like Mike Tyson, he may have never been beat. If Fedor would have made the cut to 205 and not carried a little extra. But they say that when DC cut to 205, wasn't the same dude. Chael Sonnen says he grabs DC at 205, and he can kind of play with him. He said he grabbed DC at 240 one time. He goes, not the same individual. So I wonder if at that heavyweight play, and this is an odd thing because the WBC just made a bridger weight. This is 200 to 225, I believe. So several of your heavyweight champions would just fall into bridger weight. Deontay Wilder had fought most of his career at bridger weight. Maybe his last fight was at 227. But his first fight with Tyson Fury was 209, I believe he fought at. And he's 6'7". They've proposed that in the MMA and the UFC that there'd be a cruiserweight somewhere around 225. John Jones could then walk into that, but he would never be the heavyweight champ. He'd have to break a few more pounds. So at that point, from 5'11" to 7 foot, letting a 200-plus pound man weigh whatever he wants, is there benefit to breaking up another weight class? Is there benefit to making a guy who my size gets to eat whatever he wants and never cut weight and never diet and just always be full when his muscles hurt? Does that give him the dimension we just don't see out of guys who are 6 foot and 230 but cutting to 205? And what's the answer for a guy like John Jones or Deontay Wilder that are always going to be longer and thinner than you and can always go down? Israel Adesanya can always be a weight class lower and a dimension longer than that chubby athlete, even that lean athlete. No definitive answer here, and if there was one, it would be probably take some mystique off if all those guys drop to another weight. There's something intriguing about watching guys fight, knowing he didn't diet. He drank beer, he ate cake, He lifted weights. There's videos of him running. I see him in the gym. But a guy his size, one weight class below, is like sacrifice and sauna and an extra 5 miles. And that guy's like, I'm going to bed with my belly full and I feel good. I'll show up fat and knock you out. Would those guys' careers have been different, more successful, better, had they had always cut weight? DC was the example, maybe. Would Fedor have been the same? Maybe. Who knows? Roy Nelson, Mark Hunt, those are thick boys. Could they have ever made 205? Could they have made 225? How much muscle do they really carry under that? So, I don't know. Yeah, I think if we actually would have seen them fight skinny their whole career, it wouldn't have had the same mystique. I only think it works now if they were to lose weight and do it again. But unfortunately, the time's passed on most. I mean, DC retired, Fedor retired. Mark and Roy, I guess, are still fighting, but they're probably not in the stage of their career where they're going to do a major body overhaul, a major transformation. Andy Ruiz, I don't know. He's still pretty young. I think he's getting back in shape. But you're never sure. I think Fabricio wants to come over to Bellator and have a fight with Fedor, so we might see Fedor back. A couple years off, we could see DC back. Who knows? Tell me what you think. Would those fighters have been the same had they have been the diet versions of themselves? Like, subscribe, share. God bless.